Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today I just wanted to talk a little bit about disconnecting because I feel like the disconnect rate is at an all-time high, especially at the very start of the match or the first time survivors get downed. They're just disconnecting. The main reason I wanted to talk about this is because I've been seeing a lot of people, particularly on Twitter, saying things like,
"Oh, I can disconnect if I want to. Get over it. It's perfectly valid. There shouldn't even be a disconnect penalty. I can do what I want. It's my game, and I'm gonna disconnect every match if I feel like it."
and you know what? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't care that much if you're somebody who disconnects. I'm somebody who plays solo queue Survivor, so obviously it is annoying when people do disconnect right away because then the match becomes essentially unwinnable when it's a 1v3 that early on. But I don't know how many rough games you've had. I don't know what's going on your end, so it's not like I'm going to message you about it or harass you or whatever. It is your game. If you want to leave the match, go right ahead. However, what I find interesting is that a lot of these survivors are the same people who advocate against killers camping and tunneling and slugging because those playstyles are unfun. And I just think that it's kind of a silly double standard to complain about killers using playstyles to win when you're somebody who just ejects yourself out of the game and doesn't care about the fun of your teammates, because that's your whole argument, right? Is killers, you shouldn't camp and tunnel and slug because that's not fun for me. Because, you know, you care about your own fun, right? But then you don't care about your teammates' fun when you disconnect. So to me, it's just kind of a silly double standard. If you're going to be somebody who preaches that killers need to make sure that you're having fun, then why is it okay for you to disconnect and make sure that your teammates aren't having fun? If you're going to disconnect, that's fine. But then I don't see how you're going to complain that killers are making your games unfun. How does that make sense? So after seeing some of those silly tweets that I mentioned, I decided to make a silly tweet myself, saying, "Survivors be like, DCing isn't that serious. I can quit if I want, even if it's reportable and bannable. Also, survivors, don't you dare camp, tunnel, or slug," which are actual playstyles. And then I even added, "DC if you want, it's your game, I just think the logic is funny." As I'm sure you can imagine, this tweet made a fair amount of people unhappy with me because it is DBD Twitter, and I thought we would take a look at some of the responses to try to get a grasp of the logic that these people are using. First of all, there were people saying that I was spreading misinformation by stating that DCing is reportable, because I guess Behavior has stated in the forums that you shouldn't report people for DCing because the system automatically gives them a penalty. But what's interesting to me is when you go to report a player in the game for unsportsmanlike conduct, it says, and I quote, "Report this player for purposely losing the game, not participating in, or disconnecting from the game early to avoid defeat. Examples: AFK, rage quitting." Somebody explain to me how I'm the one spreading misinformation when the devs themselves still have this as an option in the game to report people for, and it says multiple times disconnecting, rage quitting, leaving early. Like, why is this even an option in the game if devs are so adamant about not wanting you to report people for it? Why don't they just take this out or reword it? If anybody is spreading misinformation, it's the devs themselves. Not a lot of people read the forums. Maybe the hardcore players do, but I certainly don't check the forums very often, if at all. So I think that most people pay attention to what's in the actual game. Now let's move on to some of the other responses to my tweet. This one reads, "Both should be considered okay. I don't understand the logic that one side isn't responsible for anyone else's fun, but the other side should be obligated to stay in the match so they don't ruin other people's fun." Well, you see, one side is a killer with no teammates, whose objective is to kill everybody and murder them. And the other side is 4 people who are on a team working together. So it is not the killer's job to worry about the fun of the people that they're murdering. It is, however, more of your responsibility as a teammate to worry about working together and escaping. Now, again, if you want to disconnect and you don't want to be in the match, do your thing, but the comparison doesn't make any sense. Like, the killer shouldn't be as concerned about your fun as you and your teammates are, because their job is to kill you. This next person is trying to claim that disconnecting is the same thing as camping and tunneling by saying, "There is something implemented for DCs, DC penalties, and there is something implemented for tunneling, base kit endurance, and coming for camping, the anti-camping mechanic. All of the above are being discouraged. Please be serious." So what you're doing here is you are comparing a temporary ban, that's what a DC penalty is. It's a temporary ban from playing the game. And the more you do it in a certain period of time, the longer your penalty gets, the longer you can't even play the game. You're comparing that to behavior giving certain tools and in-game mechanics to help survivors get out of sticky situations. It's like you said, please be serious. I mean, how can you reach this far comparing something that literally bans you from playing the game at all for a certain amount of time to in-game mechanics that are just meant to help survivors get out of tough situations? It's not at all the same. This next person said, I just can't imagine the mindset of, I'm going to ruin the game for 4 people, and thinking you are in the moral high ground? It's like if you and 4 friends made a cake together and you threw it in the trash because you personally didn't want it anymore. Okay, so you playing as a killer in a horror game where your objective is to kill 4 survivors, and you do so by using certain strategies that help you do so, is comparable to you and 4 friends making a cake and then you throwing it away. What? Okay. Playing against camping, tunneling, slugging isn't fun for both sides, in my opinion. So when my teammates DC or kill themselves on first hook, I don't blame them and move on. If somebody disconnects or gives up on their first hook or down, how is it that they were camped, tunneled, or slugged? I can't tell if this is satire, but if it's not, this is literally the dumbest thing said, because the majority of DCs are because of camping, tunneling, and slugging, and the rest are because people don't want to play against a killer they don't like, which is fine. Okay, and you're still proving my point. You just said that it's perfectly fine to disconnect immediately because you don't like going against that particular killer. And in doing so, you are ruining the experience of all of your teammates. However, you don't like camping, tunneling, and slugging because that's not fun for you. Do you see the double standard here of disconnecting, leaving your teammates behind because you don't think that was going to be fun for you, so you ruin their fun, but you don't think it's fun to camp and tunnel and slug, so you shame killers for doing that, and that's the bad thing. The play styles are the bad thing. You shouldn't do that because that's not fun. But disconnecting is fine. Even if it's just because you don't like the killer, totally fine. Even if that ruins the fun for other people, it's okay, because I really don't understand how this is so difficult to grasp. Maybe I'm not grasping something. Is there something I'm missing? Also, I think it's worth noting that the killer should be less inclined to be your friend or care about your fun, because they're not on your team. They're trying to kill you. As a team, as 4 teammates, you should be more inclined to care about working together and things like that. If you don't, whatever, do your thing. But what I'm saying is, the killer is the killer on their own team. Them trying to kill you and using whatever means necessary or perks, add-ons, whatever, is on them, because they're not trying to work with anybody here. They're working with themselves to defeat you. That's the point of the game. Your point of the game as survivor is to do the gens and get out, and it is 4 people working together. Okay, I think I've ranted enough. The point is, if you're somebody who complains that the killer isn't making sure you're having fun, but then you're actively making your teammates' games unfun by disconnecting, that is a double standard, and you are a silly goose. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know down below if you've had a lot of people disconnecting in your matches lately, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.